Good day. My name is Anthony Macias, and I'm going to be talking to you about the City of Miami Response Public Shelter Operation Annex. The picture you see right here is from the Great Hurricane of 1926. This sets the foundation for what Miami encounters or the how they set all future operations for encountering other hurricanes. During this presentation, we're going to talk about the purpose of the emergency response plan and the importance of community involvement and risk assessment. Community needs assessment. Identifying shelters for residents during the hurricane with water, food, and medical care, and also a shelter that provides for vulnerable populations such as elderly, disabled, and lower income personnel as family is important. In this picture, you see a family at a shelter, which will most likely be a school because all the shelters in the city of Miami are schools. Um, you see them sitting around, enjoying, they have safety, they're able to feel a little bit more relaxed. This is different to what was seen during Katrina, where everyone was on top of each other. You didn't have the ability for medical care. Didn't have the ability for people to use the toilet and created hygiene issues. The standard is to provide them with basic necessities, um, looking at the hierarchy needs, and you're looking at food, safety, water, medical care. In order to in order to provide the community with these needs, we require the community to participate. We're looking at local stakeholders, community organizations, residents, businesses. We're looking at having workshops for their input and feedback, and also developing partnerships with the local nonprofits and faith-based organizations. We can count on FEMA all day, but it is always best for the locals to have a part in trying to, one, create a plan on how they're going to help their own community. Two, it gives them that buy-in. It makes them feel useful. And a lot of the stuff, when you're looking at logistics, it just minimizes the transportation. For example, if you have a brewery in the area, which Miami has several breweries, you're able to distill the water, and that allows them to provide the community with clean water. Here we see a picture of a community member with food. Um, that is something that is local, it's a perishable item, and can be used to feed others. You'll see a lot of this with the faith-based organizations where they'll be willing to assist because it is something that comes natural to them. The risk assessment process. Here you'll see a firefighter. Um, it goes into collaboration with local agencies and experts. In what we look at in the city of Miami, firefighters, police officers, pararescue, the Red Cross, I would say are some of the most knowledgeable people. And when looking at this annex itself, having an understanding of how the city of Miami operates, routes in and out, looking at vulnerabilities, And then on top of that, you're looking at the historical hurricane impacts. This information is brought down to them. And then finally, looking at polls, demographics, since the city of Miami is always changing. Again, these are local community members which understand the area and will, um, since they understand the area, they're able to morph, shift as needed based off of the current changes and the demographics that the polls won't identify. Um, Again, identifying vulnerable areas of population. We're looking at people of low income. We're looking at the language barriers, and we're also looking at anybody that's elderly or handicapped. Hazard and threats identified. The city of Miami is at the sea level, so therefore, there actually is parts of the city of Miami that fall under the city sea level. One of the issues that we'll see is flooding, wind damages, and not all power lines are under ground. That's something that has been changed little by little, but it's not fully changed. And finally, water supply disruption. This is something that will be encountered, which will force people to boil their water, um, because water sources may be crossed. Um, Some of the associated risks are as the displacement of the residents. For those who decide to stay at home, like I stated earlier, one of the things that they may see is the water contamination. So boiling the water, filtering water, are things that are of importance, uh, because of hurricanes and the destruction it causes. You may have debris, that would be an issue. In some cases, you may have an increase in tetanus. So having tetanus shots or, um, identifying those things early on would be important. There's also going to be a strain of emergency services. One of the things that we want to do is, evacuate those which would be under sea level, which would find themselves in flooding, just to reduce that strain and allow emergency services to take on actual emergencies such as life, limb, um, or something that may be looting, something of more, um, urgency instead of, hey, I am stuck underwater because I decided to stay here in this area that is flooded. Key resources needed. So in order to run a public shelter, we have to have the adequate capacity and facilities. This is one of the reasons why understanding the demographics allows us to know, one, how many people may need the shelters, how big of a shelter we need to have. Um, and in that, you're looking at, for every person, you're going to need a certain amount of food and you're going to need a certain amount of water. Also, having an idea of how much medical supply is going to be needed, in order to render aid. Um, Trained staff and volunteers for shelter operations was important. One of the reasons that you'll see the American Red Cross. A lot of times you'll either find CERT or Red Cross members that can assist in these roles right here. Again, 9 times out of 10 in the city of Miami, you will find the shelters to be, uh, schools and, um, nine times out of ten, you'll find the American Red Cross providing that training and providing the volunteers for those shelters. Capabilities required in running a shelter, running an effective shelter is communication. That is with any organization when you're looking at one communicating, hey, we have food available at this time, we have water here, we have toilets, or we have an issue within the shelter. It needs to be communicated through a PA system, a board, or whatnot for those that are looking to go to a shelter. That is also that's being communicated prior to the storm hitting the city of Miami. It's being communicated via social media, news outlet, any type of media that is available. Therefore, it allows for the emergency services to not have to deal with people stranded in motorhome parks or other situations. You're affording the opportunity for those in a situation more vulnerable to find themselves in a shelter, which will provide them with food, medical necessities, water, and in turn allowing the emergency services to focus on what they truly need to focus on and not putting a strain on the assets that are available or the resources that are available. Communication also falls into law enforcement where they are driving around with on the PA system, letting them know, hey, we have shelters here, or this is an evacuation area. You have so much time to evacuate. If you decide to stay here on your own, you are on your own. So these are some of the things that are available to them. Exercising the plan, this goes into a tabletop, this goes into a functional exercise. Looking at the picture here, this is a CERT member, which is a community member, a volunteer working with the City of Miami Fire Rescue, learning how to place a tourniquet on a casualty. um, Tourniquets are extremely important because they will stop the bleeding, uh, which in this case right here, looking at the arterial bleed, can cause a person to die within 3 minutes because you're losing 2 liters of blood for every minute, and the body holds 6 liters of blood. You want to review these plans and exercise them every so often. One of the things that we've seen in Europe with the army is that we will alternate every other year having a functional exercise and then having a tabletop exercise. This allows us to, one, put the plan into place that was seen in the tabletop, and then um once we go to conduct the functional exercise, it allows us to then put have an understanding of our resources, capabilities, and then throwing that back into the tabletop and being able to work on a plan. Um, that goes into having continuous feedback and improvement, which goes into that cycle that you're always training and modifying the plan so that one, the community receives the help that it truly needs based off the current information and current equipment that is available. Communication methods, as stated before, we're looking at social media, websites, local media. So we can look at at radio, we can look at television. Thankfully, nowadays we have cell phones, so a lot of the local media has either a YouTube page, a Instagram, some type of social media page on top of the channel that people will watch. Having meetings is important. So similar to C-SPAN, the city of Miami has its own channel where they will broadcast information to the community, which allows them to have up to date information. Seeing that the city of Miami is primarily Hispanic, um, and also has different nationalities like Haitians, which speak Haitian Creole. Um, the material is then released in multiple languages so that everybody has that understanding of what is going on, what is needed, where the shelters are, and again, in turn, reducing the strain on the resources that are available for life saving or first aid. Like any plan, it should always be reviewed and updated based off of changes to demographics, changes to the the layout of the city. Um, Recently, after COVID, Miami had an influx of people, which then caused a change to the plan on how people would it caused a change on how shelters would operate because the area previously that had so many people, and in theory, the shelter would hold the adequate amount, has changed because of that influx. Miami is also going higher instead of going wider. This goes more into the New York City model where you are having high rises for that square footage, which increases the need for more shelters, and that goes into other things where when you're building a new structure, that should be identified if it is a shelter or not. So, in conclusion, one of the things that we addressed was the community needs and the risks. We also addressed engaging the whole community in emergency preparation and the emphasis on communicating and training for effective shelters. Again, my name is Anthony Macias, and I talked to you about uh, the shelter annex for the city of Miami. Thank you. You have a good day.